I would submit that life insurance is probably the most misunderstood financial vehicles in our country today. And there's a lot of people who take advantage of that, quite frankly. What I find interesting is, we typically insure our cars and our homes for their full value, but when it comes to our lives, we typically don't insure ourselves for the full potential. Which and the reality is, insurance is to replace what was lost. So, life insurance is to replace a lost income. For example, if I died, my life insurance is there to replace my income from my spouse and kids, uh, my wife and kids, and and most people are woefully underinsured from that perspective. And so having a conversation about the appropriate amount of coverage, I typically find when I have that conversation with people, it's the first time that that conversation's ever been had. And some people will like, well, gosh, I should have a lot more. And some people are like, I'm fine where I'm at. And that's fine as long as the conversation has been had and you can make an educated decision. Now, there's obviously different types of insurance, and that becomes a much more complex conversation, and I can speak at length about that to someone one-on-one if those conversations come up.
It just sounds like all of these conversations are so, customized and so different from dentist to dentist. Everyone's different. We all come from different backgrounds. We live in different situations, different ages, different cultures. But
Well,
I,
you said
I think
something really important there. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You said something really important, is everyone's different. So I really have a strong, I vehemently disagree with it when someone makes a broad brush stroke. So for example, I'm married and I have 5 kids. My situation is different than a lot of people's situation. So you can't say that the guy who's single should do the same thing as me, or the guy who's married and with one newborn child should do the same thing as me, who's married and has 5 kids. So every situation is custom, and so the recommendations have to be custom for every situation.
now, how do you get through to let's say we go back in time, we're talking to a 29-year-old Eric Block. He's single, he just got out of dental school, he's just finally making a paycheck, single, how do you get through to someone of that age to now a 47-year-old Eric Block? He has 2 kids, a house, a wife, a practice. These are two very different Eric Blocks.
Well,
Is that, go ahead.
it's a good question. And 29-year Eric Block typically is a challenging person to work with. He's still got a little of a know-it-all on him. And what you find typically is once you have a kid, all of a sudden you look around and you realize, well, crap, I got to get my act together. And most people, in my experience, are not ready to have these conversations until they have a child. Um, you know, if they're married and they're older, like 35 or 40, they're like, yeah, we need to have these conversations, but they don't have kids. But if you're in your 20s, you're typically not having these conversations um, until you have a child. Now, some people do, and kudos to them, but a lot of people don't.